Hello and welcome to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for Thursday Night Football. We got the Seahawks at the Cowboys. Should be a fun game. We're going to go over that whole slate and whole game in a minute. But before we get into it, please come join us at LineStar. There's a bunch of different ways to get in to join us. You can do a 3-day trial for free through the app stores if you are a new customer to LineStar. So that free trial is not available if you've already tried us before. Another way, on the screen down below there, you can see there's a couple different promo offers. We got Thrive, we got Sleeper, Underdog, Chalkboard. All of them could give you up to 1 month free of LineStar. Use the promo code LineStar, get a $100 deposit match. Hit their minimum deposit. It's at least $10 or $25 depending on the spot, and you get a month of LineStar free. Just make sure you fill out this form and contact us after you do so. Now let's get into it. So we do have a 46 game total. We got Dallas being 9-point favorite, so it might not be one of the most fun games again, but anything's got to be better than that last Monday night game. So let's dive into a little bit. As far as the injury news, the only big one is really at running back here with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is doubtful, so he probably doesn't play. We probably get that news early tomorrow. I am recording this Wednesday evening, and let's walk through it here. So, all right, starting at the QB, you got Dak, you got Geno. Cowboys have gone super pass heavy, and Dak has been unbelievable since they have. So, I mean, I think you got to keep trusting in Dak here. However, this matchup is a little bit more of a difficult one than you would think it is. Seattle has been decent versus quarterbacks and wide receivers, so it's not like a home run matchup whatsoever. But I definitely would prefer Dak over Geno. Ownership agrees as well here on DraftKings, with more going to Dak. Both quarterbacks will be decently owned, though. And then on FanDuel, more of the same. Geno less owned than Dak, and, Dak looking much, much better, at least projection-wise and value-wise. Now, get over to the matchups. And it does look on paper that Geno has the better matchup. The thing that this Dallas pasty has going against it is that teams have just been down significantly and having to pass a little bit more versus them. But there have been some touchdowns. DeVito, 2 touchdowns. Hurts had 2 passing touchdowns. Bryce Young had a TD. Stafford had a TD. Brock Purdy had 4 TDs. So the touchdowns are able to happen. And one thing we know with the Seahawks is they don't really open up their passing attack unless they're behind. So that does open up the door for Geno to have a little bit better of a game than he usually is. But it is not going to be easy for him. It's going to be tough sledding. And that's just kind of what it is. So now let's get over to the running back spot. So Charbonnet is a little bit of a value, 6,800. He's going to get a ton of work. He's getting the most ownership. I do, however, think that his upside is a little bit limited on this slate. So I don't, totally love using him for these single game slates with high ownership and in a matchup that's a little bit tough. But I understand why you're going to get there. His workload is going to be huge. I mean, Seattle was down big early. He still had 18 touches. The week before, he had 21. I think you can kind of expect that. I think he's going to be used in the passing game a decent amount. He's going to be used in the rushing as much as they can, as long as they stay into this game. So I think Charbonnet is fine. especially for his price. And I understand why everybody's going there, but I think it lacks upside big time. Tony Pollard, he's still been fairly inefficient, but at least he's got in the end zone the last couple weeks. So, I don't mind going to Pollard. He is probably going to need to get in the end zone twice, though, to make him like captain viable. And not totally sure that would happen. If it is a blowout, Rico Dowdle definitely makes sense. He has got extra runs in blowout. And DJ Dallas is a very good pass catching back, so he could get a little extra run in a blowout as well. Ownership on FanDuel, very similar. Charbonnet, Pollard, super high owned. The rest, low owned. And if we go over to the matchup, Tony Pollard, as we expected, has the better matchup. One thing that I do have to say, adding on to Pollard, is that running backs have really been able to get to the Seattle defense through the air. McCaffrey did really well through the air. Henderson did well through the air. Robinson did well through the air. Gus Edwards, who doesn't even catch passes really, at a 70-yard reception. So that's really the way that these teams have succeeded. So understand that Dak versus Pollard, stack isn't out of the question on this slate without a doubt. And as we can see, Charbonnet obviously has a very difficult matchup. Guys are struggling to get over 60 yards versus the Cowboys on the ground. And wide receiver, CD's getting all the ownership as he should. He's been absolutely crushing it all season. He does have a pretty tough matchup, though, and one of the tougher matchups he's had all season long. So I don't love his prospects in this spot. I think he might be going a little bit over-owned, and his price is extremely high. Now, he's going to get his. He is a stud wide receiver, so he's going to get it. But I don't absolutely love the spot. Lockett is projected for the highest ownership from Seattle. And, he kind of has the higher ceiling than DK Metcalf. Metcalf is consistent, but rarely hits 20, whereas Lockett has several games, where he's going over 20. And I do think he is a little bit better of a matchup in this spot. JSN is fine. He's going to get his 3 to 5 targets. If one gets an end zone, then he's absolutely viable. Tolbert's getting more and more play, so I think he's kind of interesting. So the last 4 weeks, 5 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets. Now, if CeeDee Lamb has a little more struggles, they're going to be looking to throw a little more to Cook, Gallup, Tolbert. So I think these ancillary options are kind of interesting, especially with Cooks. I'm shocked his ownership is so low when he's been so good lately. 173 yards a couple weeks ago, 72 and a touchdown last week. I think Cooks is in a better matchup than CD this week, and he can absolutely exploit that matchup. So he is interesting in my eyes. Now we go over to FanDuel. Same thing, CD's highest owned, JSN, DK, and Lockett all similarly owned. And then you have the slew of other Cowboy receivers, of which my favorite is Cooks. But I don't mind taking some shots with Tolbert. I think he is fairly interesting and definitely willing to get there. And matchup-wise, JSN has the best matchup, but it's still not like it's a great matchup. Curtis Samuel did very well, but nobody else has as far as a wide receiver 3. Now, Samuel and JSN are much better wide receiver 3s than most teams have, so you would expect them to be a little bit better. Cooks is up there with a better matchup as well, and then Lockett, and below that just gets worth. Metcalf has a tough matchup. Lamb has a tough matchup, as we have talked about before. Now, getting into the tight end spot, I really like Jake Ferguson in this matchup. I think that tight end is probably where the Cowboys are able to attack the easiest, and Ferguson is second in red zone targets on the team. So I like his outlook quite a bit. Only 33% owned. Schoonmaker has been getting some targets too for a touchdown 2 weeks ago. 2 targets last week, 1 for 12. So he's viable. He could definitely get in the end zone. And then on the Seattle side, I mean, you could use any of them. The Seattle doesn't use any very much, but they can have a game here or there. So worth, using, or worth having in your player pool, but not one that you should go out of your way to play. And on the FanDuel side, Ferguson highest owned, everybody else very similar after that, which we thought it should be. And matchup wise, Ferguson by far has the better matchup. The thing here is that Seattle just has so many tight ends that they use. It's really hard for one to separate. And what we've seen is, unless you are a very good tight end, you're stuck to 30 yards or under versus the Cowboys. So don't love their outlook. And defense, Cowboys have a hefty price tag. Probably worthy playing. They are racking up sacks these days and can force some turnovers, so they're interesting. This Seattle defense is getting slept on, though. They are better than people give them credit for. And going low owned. Dallas D is probably going too low owned on both sites. And for kicker, both kickers got to be in play here. I think that Dallas is going to be able to move the ball well. They might struggle in the red zone. And probably the same on the other side for Seattle, where they're going to be able to move the ball all right, but struggle come the red zone. So I think these kickers are both very interesting plays on this slate. All in all, make sure you're trying to get different. I think this slate is one where you can. I don't think you have to play CeeDee Lamb. I don't think you have to play Pollard. Those are the 2 highest owned, or most likely high owned flex spots. And then also Charbonnet is there with high ownership too. And I don't love his ceiling. Can he be in the optimal lineup? Yes, but I don't love his outlook for, say, a captain spot. And even, in optimal lineup, I think that the wide receivers very much could beat him out. All in all, it's an interesting slate. Just try to figure out a story as far as what you think is going to happen, and then let that kind of depict how your lineup goes in picking, who to play and who not to play. All right, guys, you all have a good one. Thank you for joining me. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Helps us out a ton. Adios.